That fella couldn't do anything. He couldn't even kneel to pray. And he got saved. Are you saved? That fella couldn't join the church. He couldn't join the church. He couldn't get baptized. He couldn't get baptized. He woke up with God. He woke up with the devil. Are you saved? So that fella didn't take the sacraments, didn't take the sacraments. Didn't say the rosary, didn't take the rosary. Didn't tithe, didn't tithe. He went to heaven, he went to hell. You saved? Didn't keep the law, he didn't keep the law. He broke the commandments, he broke the commandments. He didn't keep the golden rule, he didn't keep the golden rule. He woke up in glory, he woke up in the pit. Are you saved? You're saved. If you're not saved, you're over here or you're over here. You sure ain't in the middle. He said, Lord, remember me, thou comest thy kingdom. And Jesus turned to him and said, verily I say unto thee, today shalt thou be saved. It's like that. You have been saved? If you ever saved, you were saved like that.
All right. In this video, I want to talk about all the different doctrines that are out there. I want to talk about how I pretty much have heard them all. I don't want to say I have heard them all, because then all of a sudden there's a new one, right? Like the whole Satan's little season thing is relatively new, right? Within the last couple of years or so that popped up. But yeah, I pretty much have heard it all and gone over all the doctrines because I want the truth, right? And to do that, you have to hear out the different denominations and their different arguments and, you know, weigh the evidence for yourself to see if there's any at all and decide for yourself what is and isn't true. And of course, you know, you bring in some prayer and genuine desire for the truth, and there you go, right? If you genuinely want the truth, God's gonna help you get to it. All right? He might give it to you a little bit at a time to see if you really want it. And if you keep accepting the little pieces that he gives you, he'll give you more and more and more, and he'll lead you along until you get to the truth, Jesus Christ, right? But why am I bringing this up? Well, because there's people that pop up in the comments section and they want to have conversations, and I don't mind having some conversations. I enjoy reading a lot of your all's comments. But there's a lot of people that, you know, they disagree with you and they want to butt heads, and I don't mind. Right? We can discuss things, but they don't really want to discuss things. They want to tell you how it is, and if you don't accept it, then you're just blind to it. You can't accept the truth. And then you just tell them something like, okay, well then dust your feet off and walk away and go pray for me. But then they won't go away, and they just keep on keeping on trying to push their beliefs onto you. And it's just like, hey, I don't believe you. I don't believe you understand it correctly, and I don't care what you have to say. And, you know, they just still won't go away. So what I want to do in this video is talk about how there's times where there's people I'm just going to remove their comments, or I'm going to block them, and explain why. It's because the people don't really want to have discussions, and I've already talked about these arguments before with many other people before, right? I've been getting into scriptures for the last 20 years. It's not some kind of bragging or anything like that, but for the last 20 years, I've been diving into the scriptures, trying to find God and to better know and understand him, and then it turned into trying to make him better known and understood to the world. Right? And in doing so, I've heard the doctrine and the arguments coming from the Orthodox and the Catholics about how they're the one true church, and about their authority, and about why they believe in the Eucharist and all these other things. Right? I've heard the arguments. Right? I don't believe them. I don't accept them. I don't think that there's any authority to it. I know it's a twisting of scriptures, a misunderstanding of scriptures, and a contradicting of the scriptures, right? And you can disagree with me all you want, but that's why I put here, disprove mine. All these people, they want to sit here and they want to preach their doctrines, right? Whatever it may be. I'll get into some of them here. But they don't understand how it works, right? For example, I don't preach the gospel to an atheist. Why? Because they don't even believe in God. They don't even believe in a judgment. They don't believe there's anything when they die. So why would I preach to them the gospel? Right? When you talk to an atheist, you see if they're receptive by talking to them about God. Be like, okay, you want evidence for God? Well, science is what we can observe, right? And what we can test and retest and get the same results, right? Well, when we actually use science and we test things out, and we don't use speculation and imagination, every time we get something that's alive, and every time we get something that is conscious, it comes from something that is already alive and already conscious. That's a scientific fact. There's never been any instance outside of imagination and speculation where life has come from something not living, or consciousness has come from something not conscious. So to believe otherwise is not scientific. It's fairy tales, right? And just because you think it must have happened that way, it had to have happened that way, that's imagination. There's no reality to that. That's a faith-based belief, right? And right there, a lot of atheists they won't accept that. So there's like, what's the point of going forward with that, right? Because that's the first step for helping them to realize there's a God. But if they can't accept that truth right there, which generally they won't, well then I will dust my feet off and walk away and give a little prayer for them, right? And that's that. But you see, the first step is I try to knock down their foundation of lies, such as there is no God, so that then I can lay down the foundation that there is a God. Because if they accept that truth, then we can go on to show that, hey, with evolution, what we actually see is a falling apart. So when they show an evolutionary tree where there's this first life form and it evolved into all the life forms we have today, that's correct, but it's backwards. Not that everything evolved into that one creature, but that one creature had all the information in it to create all the life we see today. Because what we see in evolution is actually a scrambling of loss of information. And that's how you get speciation. Where in one area, a certain animal, let's say a type of dog, starts breeding, and a group of them move to another area where the climate is different, and they got to deal with different things, and both groups start losing and scrambling the information in the DNA, in the chromosomes, and eventually they'll lose information to the point where they're no longer able to mate anymore. It's not because new information was added, because that's not what we see in science. What we see in science through genetic reproduction is a scrambling and a loss of information. Every time we see something added, such as another chromosome or a duplication of proteins in the DNA, new base pairs and stuff, it's always been harmful and makes it where the creature cannot survive, it cannot mate, it doesn't pass anything on. And that's science, right? So if they can accept that, then we can understand, hey, there's no such thing as an infinite regress. So if you can't say, well, if God created everything, who created God? Well, if that's how you see it, that makes no sense, because how would we get to where we are today? You may ask, what do you mean? Well, you see, if you're saying, well, who created God? Well, and then who created that being? And who created that being? And then who created that being? And you go on forever. Well, then you never get to this point. There has to be a beginning, a source. So we see that source has to be alive. It's conscious. It has all the information in it to create all the life we see before us. And it's the beginning. There's God, right? And if we can go through those steps, I just tore down the foundation of what the atheist believes and set up a foundation of showing them that God exists. And then we can start talking about life and death and judgment. Then the gospel, right? But you see, there's a lot of people where I get comments about things like, there's no such thing as a pre-trib rapture. They'll either say it's a post-trib pre-wrath rapture, it's a post-trib rapture, or there's no such thing as a rapture at all. And they'll start quoting me scriptures, and it's like, I've already heard all these arguments. I've already looked into there being no tribulation at all, or a post-trib, or a post-trib pre-wrath, which is basically just a mid-trib rapture. And I've already gone into the arguments. I already know why they believe what they believe. You're not showing me anything new, right? So I'm not going to give you a whole lot of time. I'll just tell you, well, I don't believe what you're saying. I think you misunderstand the scriptures. And if you're just sitting there saying, well, I'm blind and stubborn or whatever, well, then dust your feet off, walk away and pray for me. There's no point in wasting our time going over this all over and over and over and over again, right? If you really want an honest discussion, disprove my belief, right? Destroy my foundation instead of trying to build on the foundation of what I already believe, right? Such as if an atheist wanted to prove to me there's no God, they would have to disprove the Bible, right? And if they couldn't disprove the Bible, then they're not going to get anywhere. If they're just trying to say, well, there's no God because I don't believe there's a God, there's no evidence for it. And be like, well, the Bible is evidence for it. The Bible is an amazing book when you read it and study it and learn about all the strange connections throughout it. Right? Well, that's if you're using the KJV. These other ones, you're not going to get that. You're going to find contradictions and all kinds of errors. It's going to get you all mixed up. But when you're using the KJV, you see the hand of God. There's a guy there, I believe his YouTube username is something like Truth is Christ. He does a lot on the KJV and the numbering system and all this stuff. He does a pretty good job showing you how these things are impossible for a man to have done because of the chances of them happening just by random chance. Right? But you'll have to check him out if you want to know what I'm talking about and what he's talking about. But these people, they want to disprove what I believe. Then we can actually get somewhere, right? Because if you're going to preach to me your doctrines and they contradict my doctrines, I don't care, right? I might talk to you for a little bit, but eventually I'm going to delete your comments. I'm going to block you. I'll usually first, let you know, hey, go away. Just go dust your feet, go pray for me, right? And if you don't listen, then I'll probably end up deleting your comments. And then if you still keep pressing, like I've had some people, as soon as I said, hey, I'm probably just going to have to block you, they came to me with a different username. It was the same username, but with a different number at the end of it. And they started, replying again. Even though I didn't block them, I was just warning them. And I just deleted their comments. Like, I don't want to block people, but if, I have to, I will. And not that they care. And it's going to stop them from being them. But, yeah, I'm just letting you know, for anybody who wants to truly interact with me, to, try to reach me with the truth. Okay, if you got some doctrine you want to share with me, you have to disprove what I believe, right? Because I've gone to the Mormon services and learned about Mormonism. Not that it's Christian, but I even did the same thing with Muslims in the Quran. Went to some Muslim services and went to the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Learned from a lot of the Baptists and Independent Fundamental Baptists. Followed along with a lot of the Calvinists. Right? Learned a bunch of different things from the different non-denominational groups. Because they don't all line up. They got their own their own thing they're doing, right? And then there's these other groups that go by different names and what have you, and I hear them out. There's rarely anything new that has popped up, especially with the people who want to argue about it in the comment section, right? But again, if you truly want a conversation with me, such as you want to tell me there's a mid-trib rapture, whether you want to call it a post-trib pre-wrath, or you want to tell me about a post-trib rapture, I don't care, right? Disprove what I believe first, right? You want to tell me that we have a works-based salvation. All right, well, disprove my beliefs about needing faith only, right? Just because you share with me a passage that talks about needing works doesn't mean the passage, we can completely throw out the passages about faith alone. It shows that there's a contradiction, right? And we need to reconcile that contradiction. Why does it say in one place, such as with Romans chapter 4, that Abraham had faith without works? Him that worketh not, but believeth on him that justifieth the ungodly, his faith is counted for righteousness without works. So it was a dead faith according to James, where James says you're justified, but you need faith and works. We have a contradiction, right? And a lot of you just go, well, you don't say it, but you basically will just throw Paul out the window and follow James. And it's like, no, right? You basically are just like, just ignore Paul like I'm doing. Don't believe what Paul says, like me. And it's like, no. Disprove what Paul said. Explain to me when he says, to him that worketh not, but believeth on him that justifieth the ungodly, his faith is counted for righteousness. So without works, it doesn't define the kind of works, kind of like we're told in Titus 3:5, where he says, not by works of righteousness which we have done, but by his mercy he saved us. Mercy is not getting what you deserved, showing that it's not about our works, right? Or Ephesians 2:8 and 9, talking about by grace you are saved through faith. Well, grace is God's unmerited favor. You didn't earn it, right? And a lot of people, what they do is they're just like ignore what those passages say. They don't try to explain them. They just throw them out the window, and then they're like, do what I did and throw them out the window, and don't believe them, don't follow them, and then we'll go with the opposite, what contradicts them. Well, and it's like, well, no, why do they contradict? How about we study that? How about we do what Paul said and study the word, showing ourselves approved unto God, rightly dividing the word of truth? So we know we need to divide things because there's a contradiction, so there's got to be something going on here. Why don't we study that? Why don't we talk about that? Right? So if you want to come with your doctrines that contradict what I believe, and you just want to keep pushing them and pushing them and pushing them, I'll just remove your comments, and if need be, I'll block you. And if you don't care, then all right, whatever. Don't expect to get through to me. You don't have to waste our time. I mean, do you really need the attention? Right? I mean, seriously. It just doesn't make sense. Like, if for example, with the atheists, I'm not going to keep trying to get them to believe there's a God and keep pushing the evidence down their throat when they don't want to eat it. They don't want it, okay, I'll go away. But with a lot of you, I'm like, hey, I don't want it, and I'll say, go away, and you won't. And it's like, all right, so you're either a bot or you're like some kind of narcissist or something, right? Where you just need constant attention. You can't accept no for an answer. You're basically like mental, emotional, spiritual rapists. That's what a lot of these people, that's how I describe them. They want to force you to believe something. They want to force their beliefs onto you, and they just want you to accept it. And if you don't, it's because you're the problem. You're blind. You're stupid. And it's like, okay, well then go away. Like Jesus said, let the blind follow the blind. Leave them alone. Right? He said, hey, when they reject you, dust your feet off and walk away. But you all don't seem to care what he says and how he lived in his example. I can see it's like a spiritual thing, you know, Satan just trying to wear out the saints. But, you know, try to reason with these people, letting them know I don't get too worked up and I'm not going to waste my time. Just trying to help you out so that you don't waste your time too. But it seems like a good lot of them just want to waste their time. And I don't get why. I don't get how it benefits either one of us. Right? Like, how does you keep telling me there's no rapture, there's no rapture, there's no rapture, there's no rapture in every comment, and saying you're just blind, you can't accept the truth, you're just blind, you can't accept the truth, there is no rapture. That's just one of the recent ones, that's why I'm talking about that. And be like, okay, well, I believe there is. Right? And I don't get for them to keep just fighting against me on it, where I'm not giving them anything other than just saying, well, I don't care what are you going to say? I can directly say that. Like, I don't care what you have to say. Right? And it's just weird. It's like, is this a bot? Like AI? Is it somebody who's like devil possessed? Like, what is their deal? So you just got to like remove the comments and sometimes you got to end up blocking them. But just in case some of these people are actually genuine, here's a video for you. All right? I got to keep this video on the top of my mind here. So next time this happens, I'm going to share this with them. Be like, hey, tear down my foundation before you start laying yours. Because I'm not going to let you do it. All right? Kind of like talking to a Muslim. I wouldn't necessarily talk to a Muslim right off the bat about the gospel, right? Because part of the gospel is that the Son of God, God himself paid for our sins. So I would try talk to him about God can do anything he wants to do, can he? And if he wanted to come into this world and be like one of us, he could do so, couldn't he? And try to get him to realize that. They probably don't want to say yes because they know where it leads to, but they don't want to say no either. So you put him in a little bit of a bind. And if you can get him to say, well, yeah, he can, well, that opens the door to be like, all right, so what makes you think he didn't? Like, start talking to him about justice. Like, is it really just for Allah just to forgive you? Just because he decided to forgive you? And you don't have to pay for anything you've done wrong? Like, where's the justice? Like, you can get away with doing, like, any crime, basically, right? Allah can just forgive you for it? I was like, how is that just? There's like, you tell them that Allah's not just. There is no justice in Islam. And focus on that. Try to get them to think about that, about justice, and about what's right. And then if you can get them to accept the fact that there has to be justice, someone has to pay, something has to pay for the sins. Start talking to them about how the Jews, that's why they offered up sacrifices, right? They had the temple, they offered up sacrifices. Why? To pay for their sins, to show that there has to be justice. Right? And get them to focus on that. Once they can, if they're able to, if they do, they accept the fact that there has to be justice, well, then you can be like, well, that's where God comes in. How you can truly be forgiven? Because forgiven means to actually have someone else pay for it for you. Kind of like if you can talk to the Muslim and say, like, let's say I borrowed $500 from you and I never pay you back and you forgive me. You're paying that $500, aren't you? Right? You're paying my debt. Right? Get them to understand, like, yeah, I'm paying your debt. So if you forgive me, you pay for it. Be like, all right. So if God forgives us, he's paying for it. You see how that works? That's where the justice comes in. So where did your God pay for it? Like, what's the punishment for sin? Right? Is it death? Is it hell? What is it in Islam, huh? Did Allah actually pay for that sin for you? Or he's just going, nah, we don't need justice. You just get away with it because I said so. That's not fair. You're telling there could be some Muslim brother of yours could rape and kill. Not saying this is a Muslim teaching to go do this, but let's say he raped and killed one of your brothers and or sisters, right? And then he goes on and serves Allah for the rest of his life, and Allah just forgives him for it. That's okay? There's no justice for that? He got to do that, and there's no punishment for it whatsoever. Because Allah just forgives him. Right? Get him to think about justice. About what's fair. Right? And about how we as humans, we have courts and we require justice and fair treatment. Right? But it's like these people, no. They're just like a boulder. They just come rolling down the hill, run over your home, and be like, accept what I have to say, or be squashed. Right? And it's like, no. No, thank you. Right? But I'm done rambling on and venting about it. But it just seems to, happen so much. I don't know if you run into that. There's just people they're half-wits. I mean, you explained it to them very simply. Hey, I don't believe what you believe. Go away. Well, you don't believe it because you're blind. You're just stubborn. You're just stupid. You just can't accept the truth. You're going to be in trouble when you face Yeshua. And it's like, all right. Thank you for warning me. Bye. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to go anywhere until you accept what I have to say. That's basically what they're saying. And that you have no choice other than just to delete their comments because you're like, go away, and they won't. What else do you got to do, all right? I mean, you can block them, but I would rather not have to do that. But thank you for listening to this rant and venting session here. But hopefully this gets through to them. It's just ridiculous. And that's the other thing. If you're not willing to hear me out, then don't be so arrogant to think I'm going to give you the time to hear you out. Right? Isn't that how a lot of people are? They're like, stop everything you're doing. Eyes up here. I need your full attention. Here is how things are. You just accept it now. And if you don't accept it, I'm going to have to repeat it to you until you accept it. Right? And then you're like, well, I don't believe it because of this and this. And they just act like you didn't say anything and they just repeat it to you. Right? Like as if they're a mindless drone and they just want to drill it into your head until you just accept it. It's like their mental... what is it called? Brainwashing technique? Mental manipulation? Just keep saying it over and over until they accept it. Isn't that what Hitler said? Or Goebbels, his propaganda guy? You repeat the lie over and over and louder, and people eventually just believe it. That seems to be a lot of these, quote-unquote Christians. That's their method. If I just keep saying it and I get a little louder and repeat it over and 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 over, everybody will just accept it because it's just drilled into their head. That or they just want me to shut up. Right? But anyway, I know I keep saying I'm going to stop, but then I don't. But this time I'm stopping. Thank you for your time and attention. I'll catch you in the next one. Alright, it's the end of the video, and I figured I would do an ending segment to my video so I don't have to keep repeating myself, but I do want to remind you to do what Isaiah said to do and seek out the book of the Lord and read it, putting line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little, doing what Paul said, and studying the word, showing yourself approved unto God, rightly dividing the word of truth. And if you read English, that would be the KJV. And then do what John has Jesus recorded telling the Church of Philadelphia, and keep his word, preserve it, protect it, hide it in your hearts, and not deny his name. And then Jesus will never be able to tell you do err not knowing the scriptures, and he'll keep you from the hour of temptation, which is going to come upon all those that dwell upon the earth here shortly. And with that being said, I'd like to ask you for your support. You watching the video all the way to the end helps out a lot, but if you could like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, share the video, share the channel, interact in the comments section. These things help out a lot, especially with people telling me that their likes are not being registered, that they get unsubscribed, and all kinds of other ways being shadow banned. Your help in this way was greatly appreciated. And if you're able to give me a little bit more time and pray to our Heavenly Father that he keeps this ministry going and he uses it to reach those who he wants to reach, to get the truth out to the world, to make it a bright light, and to feed his sheep, to feed his children, even to bring forth more children, and that he would watch over all of us, his born-again believers, and take care of us, provide for us, and protect us, even after he comes and gets us, which looks like it's going to be real soon. And just to amen in Jesus' name to that should be all we need. But if you could help out some more, I know times are rough and they look like they're getting rougher, but if you're able to support financially, there's a few ways you can do so in the info description box, such as PayPal, Venmo, and there's a couple other ways you can support if you so choose to do so, which would make sure I can keep this ministry going longer than the foreseeable future, because this kind of support has been drying up there. It's pretty much non-existent lately. So if you could help out in that way, it would be greatly appreciated to make sure I can keep doing this. But if you could at least pray, I know God will provide. And sometimes it's a change of ministry, so maybe it won't be a ministry online anymore. But hey, if you want to keep seeing this stuff, pray. And with all that being said, thank you so much again for your time and attention, for watching this video all the way through. I appreciate it. Take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next one, and may God bless you and yours.